You're listening to The Foundation of Wellness, a refreshing take on diet and lifestyle, with Jessica Dogert, a registered dietitian nutritionist, and Marisa Moon, a primal health coach.
Hey, my name is Jessica Dogert, and I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, and you can find me at jessicadogert.com.
What's up? It's me, Marisa Moon. I'm a certified primal health coach from marisamoon.com and the recipe blogger at mylongevitykitchen.com.
Cool. So today's episode is a continuation of last week's episode. So last week we spotlighted 2 elimination diets, the Whole30 and the Autoimmune Protocol, or AIP for short. So if you haven't listened to that episode, we really encourage you to do so. This week, Marisa and I are chatting all about the Low-FODMAP diet as well as the infamous Paleo diet.
You did a great job last week, by the way.
Thank you.
I loved your episode. Well, first of all, we should talk about what are elimination diets. Well, we kind of know what they are, but why are they so popular right now? Not only are they trending like crazy on the internet, in bookstores, even in Hollywood, but they're becoming the top recommendation made by holistic gastroenterologists, functional medicine doctors, of course, and practitioners of all sorts, even chiropractors, and dietitians, and pediatricians. But why are they starting to recommend elimination diets? I just wanted to quote Dr. Michael Ruscio here because he's my favorite functional medicine gastroenterologist, and he says, in my opinion, diet is unquestionably the most impactful intervention for improving your gut and your overall health.
Ooh, I love that.
I'm saying.
You know, elimination diets, they're like a mini experiment. They're usually a more accurate, affordable, and practical way to assess food sensitivities and GI issues compared to lab testing. That's
Whoa.
crazy, right?
Yes.
So how can something so simple like a diet be accurate and practical compared to a lab test? A 2015 review paper concluded the most helpful diagnostic test for food intolerance is food exclusion to achieve symptom improvement followed by gradual food reintroduction. That's saying exactly what we're saying today. The best way to determine if you have a food intolerance and what they are is by eliminating foods and then gradually reintroducing them once your symptoms are reduced. And by reintroducing them slowly, you can easily tell which foods cause your symptoms to return.
Yeah. I mean, the coolest part about elimination diets is that they help you find out if you're in the right ballpark right from the get-go, usually within a few days. And if you're not, you just move on after a couple of weeks, try something else, and you'll figure it out sooner than later. All of the elimination diets we've been talking about on this podcast are all eliminating sugar, processed foods, and a welcome side effect usually ends up being weight loss or increased energy, no matter which diet you choose.
So why begin with diet? I mean, the foods that aren't agreeing with you are making your immune system react with inflammation, and that inflammation feeds the bad bacteria in your gut. All disease, symptoms, and pain stems from inflammation, and a great way, a smart way to reduce inflammation is by minimizing your exposure to foods that are not agreeing with your body.
Yeah, totally. And the foods you're sensitive to will often surprise you.
Right.
Elimination diets are one of the only ways to get to the bottom of it. And then you can just relax because you might be able to have a lot of those foods later once you heal your gut. So it might only be temporary. Whether you think you have gut problems or not, as a listener right now, I want you to pay attention because more and more research on the gut tells us that most of the issues we're all suffering from are relieved or even reversed once we fix our gut health. You may not even know it, but your gut is probably troubled if you have any complaints about your health, even your weight.
Yeah, I mean, as we mentioned in earlier episodes on the gut, specifically episode 3, food intolerances cause so many subtle symptoms like fatigue and brain fog and irritability and bloating and skin issues and pimples. I mean, crazy, right? So let's kick it off with the infamous Paleo diet. The Paleo diet focuses on mimicking how our ancestors ate as closely as possible using foods that are available now. So followers say that it helps to minimize your risk of chronic disease, based on the premise that those ancestors didn't suffer from the ones that we now face. And it also leads to weight loss.
Yeah, so what does it mean that we're mimicking how ancestors ate? We're eating the foods that most resemble the foods that humans ate during the Paleolithic time period. That's where the word paleo comes from. And this is when humans were hunters and gatherers. They only ate the foods they could collect or hunt in the wild. This is before civilization, before agriculture, and before industrialized foods for sure.
So what exactly do you eat? You're going to eat meat from animals that are raised the way that nature intended. So that's going to be grass-fed beef and pasture-raised chicken and wild-caught fish and then other seafood. You get to eat a lot of fresh veggies and fruits, eggs, nuts, seeds, healthy oils like olive and avocado oil, and then small amounts of things like raw honey and maple syrup. But what you don't eat, which I think we could be on board with, is processed foods. You can't eat grains, so not even ancient ones like quinoa and things like that. But that also means bread and pasta and rice and crackers and chips. And then legumes are also a no-no, as are vegetable seed oils and then refined sugar. And the true paleo diet also outlaws dairy, although many followers are going to disagree with that and do incorporate foods like grass-fed butter and Greek yogurt.
Yeah, it sounds like a good time to talk about the Primal Diet. It's really a paleo spin-off created by Mark Sission from marksdailyapple.com. Mark's also the author of the Primal Blueprint, the Primal Connection, Primal Endurance, and most recently he wrote the Keto Reset Diet. So Primal's basically the paleo diet, but with a few less restrictions. More intuitive eating, intermittent fasting, and then this whole lifestyle of primal living to go along with it. In the Primal Diet, you can enjoy some dairy if you tolerate it well enough, and you thoughtfully source it. You can even enjoy some legumes and lentils, like in that same context, even some wild rice or ancient grains, depending how they're prepared or sourced, and then you listen to your body to see if those foods work with your body. Mark Sisson of the Primal Diet is actually the founder of the online ancestral health school where I got my certification from. And so I'm a big fan. I mean, there's a lot of people crazy about the primal adaptation of the paleo diet because it's a little bit more laid back.
Yeah, and I remember meeting Mark at Paleo FX, and he was just the coolest guy ever.
Yeah,
really laid back, really
is.
fun. Yeah. So what are some pros to the paleo diet? I would say that, eating high-quality meats and fish with tons of veggies and no processed foods, it's really just going to be a great formula for not only weight loss, but just long-term health. Mm-hmm. And I think one con on my end would be, with all the grains, with all the beans, and all the dairy off the table, paleo eaters often end up leaning way too heavily on the meat.
Yeah, it's true. It's a natural way to go when you first are like, oh, I can eat tons of meat and vegetables. First of all, you might have been depriving yourself of different cuts of meat. So now you're like, I can have a steak and I can have pork belly and whatever I want and bacon every day. But really, that's why paleo gets a bad rap. It takes time and effort to cook and prepare lots of vegetables and to think outside of the bun and outside of just a steak and a sweet potato. I mean, you have to spend some time in the kitchen, spend some time sourcing your food, and have a more well-rounded diet that's not leaning too far in the carnivore sort of place, What's your recommendation, like, if you had to say the ideal paleo combination was?
Yeah, I think my advice would, of course, just be go heavy on the veggies. For example, at lunch and dinner, make them about 3/4 of your plate, and then 1/4 can be occupied by meat instead of the other way around.
Totally.
So instead of having meat be the centerpiece, have veggies be the centerpiece and the focal point. And if you're okay with just like paleo-ish, adhere to maybe like a primal diet, which would be really beneficial for you. You can replace like a few meat dishes each week with plant-based meals that incorporate spreaded legumes or even something like Greek yogurt.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. That's more how I eat. I'm like a paleo vegan fusion, tons of veggies every single day. And it's most important. You want that full spectrum of nutrients, and it is the plants that help protect us from some of the carcinogens that can be found in meat. But then at the same time, we're getting so many nutrients from meat and seafood that we can't get from plants. So you really need both.
Right. Hey, Jessica here. If you are ready to take your health to the next level, then I would love to support you. So change isn't always pretty. It could be uncomfortable and challenging and even messy at times, but it is so worth it. If you fear that fat makes you FAT, if you feel stressed out, overwhelmed, or exhausted the minute you wake up, if you're obsessed with the end goal and just forget to enjoy the process of getting healthier, if your perfectionism leads to procrastination, and you would just really love some help to change all of that, then I think one-on-one coaching is for you. You know, what it's like to work with me, you get support, accountability, and results. And I really love you up. Here's what you get. A tailored morning and evening ritual or routine that you absolutely adore. You get habit trackers, tips, tricks, and recipes to just propel you forward. And you get email support in between sessions. So the details. It is a 6 weeks coaching program. You have 3 sessions, and we meet every 2 weeks via video call, or if you live in Chicago, we can meet in person. And we have the first session being 90 minutes long, and all remaining sessions are going to be 60 minutes in length. And after each session, you receive a personalized action plan via email. So if you're interested, go to the collaborations page of jessicadogert.com. I really look forward to hearing from you.
Well, the paleo type diet, or even the Whole30 like you were talking about last week, is such a great starting point when it comes to elimination diets, because you're removing the most common allergens that people are experiencing and all the most common sources of inflammation. And if you haven't achieved relief of your symptoms yet on the paleo diet, then you would take it to the next phase, which would be more serious, like the autoimmune paleo diet,
right.
AIP for short. That's why they have a shortened version of it, AIP. But then there's also that other phase that we're going to talk about today, the Low-FODMAP diet.
Marisa, why don't you tell me about your story and just how and why you started Low-FODMAP diet?
Yeah, well, I feel like I would have to go way back to when I was super confused about what was going on with my digestive system. I had totally random gas and pains in my stomach, unpredictable trips to the bathroom, and I just woke up one day thinking, there has got to be something that I can do about this. There's no way that in my 20s this is how my body's supposed to be working. And the only way I could think of approaching this was to learn more about how my digestive system functions when it's actually healthy, and then learn what parts of my diet are affecting it, because I didn't know squat about it, let me tell you. I just wanted to be free of those symptoms so bad. I just felt like I didn't have anywhere to turn, though. And it was too embarrassing to talk about to anybody. I mean, I think everyone could agree with any IBS symptoms or gas. Who the heck wants to talk about that? I don't even like talking about it now.
You don't want to talk about it at the office, or
No, you definitely don't want to talk about it to anybody. Deep down, I was feeling pretty gross, to be honest with you. It made me feel unfeminine, insecure, and thank God I found the courage out of nowhere to seek answers. It wasn't really like me. I mean, I'm kind of a determined person, but it was just so out of my wheelhouse. And I was just awakened. I had this determination that led me down a path that eventually found paleo. And the paleo diet made so much sense to me because I was raised on whole foods. My family didn't like a lot of, fruit snacks and things that were made in a factory that the other kids were eating. It was really a lot of homemade stuff, so the paleo diet made a ton of sense. And it helped me so much when I made that turn, because I discovered that I had a gluten sensitivity. Now, just like every other foodie out there, I did not want to give up gluten. It sounded so unreasonable to me. And it made me wonder, what is life going to be like if I have to live with that kind of restriction? Gluten? I mean, come on. But the more I learned about what gluten or gluten sensitivity might be doing to my body, and then I learned the ways of our early human ancestors, I realized that it might be something that actually makes my life better. So I knew it was worth a shot. And it did make my life better. All of those stomach pains went away. My bowel movements were on point. That is something to strive for, let me tell you. And they are so predictable and healthy. I'm feeling good.
My goodness, that is so great to hear. I mean, it must have been life-changing for you.
I mean, that's the only reason I still don't eat gluten. Honestly, life is so much better for me without it. It made me feel awesome. But I did still struggle with some random and embarrassing gas, so I didn't want to stop there. It would be so unexpected. I wouldn't know where it came from, and all of a sudden I would have it. I'm sure some of you listening right now know what I was going through. And it was years until I finally discovered the Low-FODMAP diet. And this was with the help of a functional medicine nutritionist. I thought to myself, are you kidding me with this Low-FODMAP diet? How could I possibly restrict my diet anymore? I already eat so healthy. I'm paleo-ish. I gave up gluten. Are you kidding me? What kind of life will that be? But then once again, the more I learned about it, the more I realized It wasn't going to be a life sentence. It was the break that my body needed to return to balance. And it made so much sense. It's crazy when I look back and think I just had a gluten sensitivity. And then I realized I had IBS. And now I realize I also had leaky gut and SIBO, or small intestine bacterial overgrowth. I didn't know until recently that it's common for all those issues to be going on at one time in someone's health. The Low-FODMAP diet was the final move that I needed to make, and now I seriously never have gut issues or gas unless I eat something that I know doesn't agree with me. It's pretty cool to have that power now. Like I really know what turns it on and off.
That's so cool that you just finally figured it out. You know, it's like it's no longer confusing for you or anything like that.
Hey guys, Marisa here. Is there something that you've been meaning to do for your health? Like lose weight or just eat better. But for some reason you always put this on the back burner? Maybe you've been wanting to do this for a long time. I mean, you really want it. And you think to yourself, if I really want it, why don't I just do it? I know that feeling all too well. I believe we do this to ourselves for a combination of reasons, but one of the most revealing and important reasons to uncover is your inner struggle. This is a deeper meaning behind what you want, and it's usually so hard to see underneath all the superficial stuff, like I want to look better in my clothes, or I want to stop taking my medication. I love providing my clients with brainstorming exercises like this one that I call Driven by a Deeper Meaning. And I've put it together for you in a downloadable PDF so that you can uncover why it is that you really want something. Uncovering this truth will help you see more clearly what you need to take action. Head over to marisamoon.com/why. That's WHY. And my name, by the way, is with one S. It's Marisa, marisamoon.com/why. And download your copy now. And the good news is that if you download it before August 15th of 2018, you will be grandfathered in to receive a discount on the launch of my new group coaching program. That link again was marisamoon.com/why. Stay curious.
Marisa, I'm sure you know this, but, IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, it affects 1 in 5 Americans. And most people are suffering in silence because I think, like we mentioned, it's not really something we discuss at like the office or a cocktail party. And often the cause lies in short-chain carbohydrates, also called high FODMAP foods. And FODMAP stands for fermentable, oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. So do you see why that's an acronym? I mean, it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But, if you suffer from regular bloating or IBS, then a low FODMAP diet could totally change your life like it did for Marisa.
Yeah, with this diet, the low FODMAP diet, we're addressing 2 really important issues. An overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestine and even carbohydrate malabsorption, which is kind of like going hand in hand. It's like the carbs are just sitting there, they're not being digested, and then the bacteria are having a party. Many people with IBS, or even hypothyroidism, or celiac disease, or people who are overweight may also have bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine. So eating to control that bacterial growth can be really helpful. And the low FODMAP diet limits the foods that encourage that bacterial overgrowth, you see? So it ends up starving those bacteria and the fungus, which are overpopulating your small intestine. That's so important. That's how you're going to get to the next phase where you don't have to be so restrictive anymore. Maybe you should tell us, Jessica, what kind of foods we have to limit when we're on the low FODMAP diet.
So the tricky thing is about identifying high FODMAP foods, meaning the foods that you want to avoid, is that they are found in a lot of different food groups, even fruits and veggies. So think like broccoli and onion and cashews and beets and mushroom and watermelon and asparagus and almonds. I mean, all sorts of nuts and seeds. Even beans and legumes and apples and honey and cottage cheese and fennel and garlic. Just all sorts of short-chain carbohydrates. Researchers actually attempted to make it a lot easier by creating subgroups of classification. So those found in fruit, those found in dairy, those found in grains, those found in legumes, and those found in things like sugar alcohol.
It's pretty confusing, isn't it?
Very.
Can you imagine what it was like? Like I'm sitting with this nutritionist in her office, And I said, I heard something about low-FODMAP. Do you think maybe that's why? And she's like, yeah. And she printed out something for me and was like, I think that's a great idea. That would be the next step for you. And I'm looking at this list like, you got to be kidding me. I love vegetables, okay? Not just since I've been on the paleo diet. I just love them. And she's like listing off everything from broccoli and artichokes through onions and then almonds and nuts and seeds. I was like, what?
I know. I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, okay, if you're going to adhere to this for a while, just don't focus on what you can't have, but focus on all the great things that you can have, because that's the only way to get through it, kind of.
It's true, but then all I had to do was start learning about it, because the more I read about it, the more I realized every single one of us are different. Like, your gut bugs might go bonkers over broccoli, but mine don't mind broccoli. They just go crazy over cauliflower. And that was it for me. That's how I figured out. When I eat a lot of onions, it happens. When I eat like a pound of asparagus, whoa, you were going to regret that one, let me tell you. And then if I was eating so many almonds, a lot of times when you go paleo or even like vegan or any kind of like whole food diet.
Almond flour, I bake with all the time.
Almond everything. It's like, then I realized the skins on the almonds are what is really aggravating some people's guts and the bacterial overgrowth. So if I had blanched almond butter or blanched almond meal, the one that doesn't have the specks in it, the one that's like all like one color, that means that the skins have been removed. And so I was like, okay, I can actually do this. I can have some asparagus, but I can't have a pound of it. I can have almond butter, but I can only have blanched almond butter. And I can have some onions like in salsa, but I can't have like a stir fry that's full of onions and asparagus, or I'm going to be like, I need to lock myself at home and not go out in public for a day. I mean, really, that was so empowering though. When I learned that, it was like, okay, this is doable, because it just depends on the quantities and it depends on the food, how it reacts with my body. So when we're doing, as you can see, this low FODMAP diet, we're cutting out a lot of healthy foods. What about all those foods you're cutting out? Well, the goal is to heal your gut, right? So you can eat all these foods with no negative reaction down the line. But in the short term, while we're healing the gut, we're going to have to avoid some of the healthy foods. Remember, a food is only as nutritious or healthy for you if you can actually digest it. And the problem here is we're not digesting it. Those bugs are. The bacteria and the fungus are. So a food, even if it's really healthy and loaded with nutrition, can still damage your intestines and make you sick.
Yeah, which is really powerful. You know, it's just because a food sounds healthy like broccoli and almonds doesn't mean it's healthy for you. Since FODMAPs, they're found in all healthy foods like broccoli and cashews, you obviously don't want to over-restrict the diet if you don't have to. Plus, I really think that a more restrictive diet just makes life harder and way less fun, which is not the goal that we're trying to say here. You know, it seems really intense, but a low FODMAP diet could be worth it for you if you're experiencing IBS or bloating. You know, once you know which high FODMAP food categories are triggers for you, like Marisa, she knew that blanched almonds and onions weren't her thing. You know what to avoid, then you could say goodbye to bloating for good. And you might miss something like asparagus or onions, you know, for the time being, but you're definitely not going to miss the feeling that you had.
Oh yeah, it's totally in my control, and that's the best part about it. I mean, I heard about FODMAPs for so long before that, but I didn't think it related to me. It just sounded over my head, and I was like, what the heck are they talking about? And once I figured out, made that connection, man, it's really in my control now. It's pretty shocking. And cool. Once you rebuild a new gut microbiome, you wipe out those overpopulated colonies in your gut, kill off that overgrowth, it's really likely that you can enjoy these foods again in the future. So it's really not as depriving as it sounds. In fact, it's empowering, and I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah, so we hope that you liked this episode, and stay tuned for next week's episode as Marisa chats all about intermittent fasting.
I'm going to be in Hawaii, you guys. So Jessica and I are going to do these one-offs, and you guys are going to get to spend a little bit of quality time with each of us. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it'll be super fun.
All right, aloha.
Bye.